the great kids horror book that you guys have never heard of. And no, I'm not debating you. This book on Goodreads only has 2 ratings, and that's because I'm one of them, and that is Criminal, because this book is the most action-packed kids horror novella that I've ever read, with a good blend of dark comedy, some really scary and creepy moments, a villain with a very high threat level, a actual dark twist ending that makes sense, and just a lot of other good things about it. And again, the most action-packed one. If you want a book that is never boring, always has something cool going on, always has high tension and threats, this one is that. And it comes from a very cool collection of kids' horror novellas, in my opinion. And those are the 3 books that are featured in the Shivers collection from Weird House Press. So Weird House Press is a more underground horror publisher. They publish books that are usually of like adult horror, Lovecraftian nature. But the reason why I have a personal connection to them is because my favorite horror author of all time, who you guys should probably know about if you know me, whether it be in private conversations or my YouTube channel, that person is Tim Curran. Tim Curran currently uses Weird House Press to publish a lot of his books. Up on the screen will pop up some of the books that he's published with them. And the fact that they support him, the fact that he's a very prolific author that they promote on there, basically draws me towards their work. And I had seen that one of my wishes, which was adult horror authors writing kids' horror books, actually was coming true on Weird House Press, because they are going to be publishing a book this year by Tim Wagner, which is a kid's horror story that'll pop up on the screen. I think it's called I Scream, You Scream. And I'm very excited for that one. That one sounds crazy. But as I was digging through their social media and going through their website, I saw that they had 3 middle grade horror books that they had published last year around November. And this was part of the Shivers collection. These 3 books are The Sleepy Hollow Gang, the one I'm covering today, Wanna Play a Game, as well as The Unpleasant Mr. Sniff. So I'm going to be picking up all 3 of these books. I already picked up Wanna Play a Game on Kindle. I'll be picking up the 2 paperbacks for the other books probably around October. And I'm excited because this book that I read today was great, and I'm looking forward to the other 2, who also sound very fun, especially The Unpleasant Mr. Sniff, which has fantastic artwork, literally some of the best kids' horror artwork that I've seen, and the premise is very scary. But today we're talking about Wanna Play a Game, so let's go into a bit of the plot, and then I'll give you my positives and the minor negatives I have against it, but mostly giving it the praise that I think it deserves and bringing it to your attention. So Wanna Play a Game by Dotti Enderle basically starts off with these 2 main characters who are huge video game nerds. They love playing VR games, and this first chapter is the most action-packed chapter that you will see in a kid's horror novella, because it opens up with them being in this VR game, I believe called Deadly Playgrounds or Deadly Playtime. You face off against a bunch of killer toys and stuff, so you have the main character running through the city and alleyways with the acid blaster, and he's in the VR world. He ends up fighting this hybrid toy, which is like this deformed top half of like a baby doll, and the bottom half is straight up a military tank. Ends up fighting that. He gets into a fight with this swinging trapeze clown that has a bear trap mouth that tries biting his nose off. And as he's swinging back and forth with the guy, he leverages himself, his blaster's getting thrown away, and he ends up drop kicking the guy in the face and cracking all of his teeth. And then there's other gimmicks, such as like a giant baboon climbing on top of this giant Lego tower called King Klong and other stuff. So once you get past that, you realize that they're playing a level. The main character, Sam and Jax, and as they end up finishing, you find out that they are, of course, heavy gamers. They love playing VR games. They love testing out different video games. They're also just nerds in general. They like stuff like cryptids. They're big cryptid heads, obsessed with monsters and going to stuff like ChupraCon and cosplaying and stuff like that. And what ends up happening is that one day as they're getting to school and you see some of their banter, you meet some of their bullies, some of their other relations with characters. Their main teacher, their homeroom teacher for math, is not showing up today. And in fact, this strange lady walks in with like, weird bright clothing, rhinestone jeans, short orange hair. And after class, when they basically get done watching this little movie, she calls them over and asks them if they want to do some test playing for a game that her nephew is working on, and she hands him a business card which has a QR code. The kid is just, indie publishing, and, he wants to have people test out the game. The game is called Infernal Regions. When they go on the website and try to search it up on the internet, there's very little information about it. It's a very generic game, name for a game. And the concept of it is pretty basic. So they end up getting their VR sets and they end up playing the game at home. They download it on their phone and get ready. And when they start it, they see that there's some strange instructions about the game, that when you start the game, you're not allowed to leave until you finish. Either you die or finish the game. So that's a little weird to them. And as they go through the terms and conditions and banter, they eventually start up the game. And their whole room flashes with white, and they no longer feel their phones in their hands, which is weird. And they realize that they have been essentially teleported to this pocket dimension of the world of the game, this sort of dark fantasy world. And they realize that they might be in some very real danger. They might be in some very real threats. Either this is the most interactive VR thing they've ever been in, which is highly unlikely, or they're in serious peril. So as they start up the levels, you get a lot of action, which feels very much like a anime, when you watch those animes where it's like isekais where they're transported to game worlds and they fight, or stuff like Solo Leveling. These guys end up having to pick their weapons. They pick these sharp like icicle javelins, and the point of it is that they're going to be fighting in very hot arenas and levels and stuff, so you have to kill all the monsters and demons and threats before your icicle melts or breaks, because if it does, you're going to die. So they end up fighting in like caverns of fire against all these demons, straight up demons, these very disgusting, depraved looking monsters. And you have the main characters basically stabbing them with the icicles, because these monsters are allergic to ice and cold. They're hellborn fire entities, so they instantly disintegrate into particles when you hit them. You have the characters stabbing them in legs and impaling them and putting them through the eyes, putting them through their mouths, through their necks. The main character at one point sees his best friend get choked out and killed, and he has to wait for him to respawn or whatever is going to happen. So he has to solo tank, and he ends up going against dozens and dozens of demons in the next arena, which is this giant sand field with sand pits, these whirlpools of quicksand that he could end up getting stuck and drowned in. So he has to dodge around those and hit the demons and stab and slash them. He ends up pulling a move where he impales 3 demons. He stabs 2 of them through the chest, and then he basically arches it up and it goes through the neck of the other one. So he gets a 3-peat. Very cool. But eventually he ends up falling into a sand pit, drowning, and then he gets brought back to his bedroom. But the strange thing is that his friend had died before him. So his friend had witnessed what, the main character looked like when he was playing the game. And it's almost like he was catatonic. He was like in a blank state where he wasn't moving. He was completely out of it. So it's almost like the movie Avatar, where they got transported to another dimension or realm. And he sees that his friend who died before him, his collar's actually bleeding. And when they pull it down, they see these 3 jagged scratches into his back, the back of his neck, which were the claw wounds by the demon that grabbed him. And he's bleeding in real life. He has a huge gaping wound in his neck. So they end up bandaging it up and giving him all this, treatments and stuff. And he can tell that over the next few days, his friend who got slashed by the demon is starting to have less and less energy. He almost seems to be out of it. And it's strange because the wound on his back starts to smell like rotten meat, and it's festering and it's blistering. And eventually when they hang out with each other again, because he wants to investigate it, and when he investigates the wound, he ends up getting tweezers and checking the wounds behind the bandages, and it stinks. Again, it's blistering and rotting, and it looks like it's decaying. And as he opens it up, he sees that his friend's shoulder, the back of the neck extending to the shoulder where the wounds were, is infested with dozens of maggots. Dozens of writhing maggots are blistering and popping out of his skin, and he's pulling them out, and his friend is gagging and vomiting. He's freaked out, and his friend describes that the night before, he had this nightmare where he was transported back to the game world, and the demon that slashed him had come in front of him, and its mouth started opening like a train tunnel, just started opening wider and wider, and this giant swarm of flies had vomited and come out of its mouth and covered him head to toe. It's described as like a swarm of bats coming out of a cavern, and all these flies vomit out of the demon. It covers him head to toe, and they're biting, they're stinging him, they're nibbling on him, and he woke up. And turns out that it wasn't a dream. The same way that the wound on the back of his neck was real, what happened in his dream where he went back to this dimension and the demon came back to him, it's actually infesting his body. His body is infested with maggots. So they pull it out, they treat it. It's so disgusting and so visceral. I remember seeing that and I'm like, this isn't a kid's horror book. Like, this isn't a kid's horror novella. That shit is crazy, bruh. And, after that's done, he then notices that there's another shift in his friend because they're trying to figure out the mystery of what's going on. They go to the school and they talk to the staff about this sub, the same sub that gave him the game, and trying to inquire questions. And the staff are talking about like, oh yeah, this sub never existed. We didn't have a sub on Wednesday. We don't know what you're talking about. And the homeroom teacher, when they go to talk to him, he doesn't know what they're talking about. He's like, no, I was in class. We didn't have the test because my printer wasn't working. And you guys were in class looking catatonic, looking like you were in a trance. But I let it go because you guys are, good students. I just thought you were kind of out of it for that day. And they start thinking like, what the hell? Why is everybody acting like this teacher, this person didn't exist? And why is our recollection of events different to everybody else's? And that has a Weapons 2025 vibe, if you've seen the movie Weapons, that sort of strange occurrence and everyone's sort of hush hush and nobody really knows what's going on, and you there are kind of being like gaslit into thinking something bigger is not happening. That kind of vibe. Also, creepy lady and her bright appearance matches something in Weapons. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. And after that happens, the friend of his who got infected by the wound is now changing again, but he's not becoming unenergetic. He's becoming a little bit more sinister and hostile. When they're in gym class and they're playing volleyball, one of their bullies their bully's pretty funny because these two actually stand up to their bully. When their bully's bullying them, they give them like comebacks and stuff. So he'll be like, I'll pound you into the gutter. And they'll be like, oh, you're taking us to your home? And I'm like, damn, I see you. But things go a little extreme during this volleyball game because his friend who was infected ends up hitting the volleyball so hard that it clocks the bully and actually snaps his nose. His nose gets broken off to its side and he's bleeding and has to go to the hospital. And when he looks at his friend is kind of smirking and looks almost satisfied that he did it. And he's like, well, this is way too far for my friend. He'd never do this. And when they get to the locker rooms to go change, he sees an absolutely horrific scene, which is his friend is in front of the mirror, the bathroom mirror in the locker room, and he's pulling out maggots from his flesh that are still festering, and he starts eating them. And I was like, oh no, oh my God, this is a kid's horror novella. What the hell is going on? And of course he can't tell his friend because if he confronts his friend about it, he's going to look crazy, and also he might put his friend on that he suspects something about him, so he kind of keeps it to himself. And they decide, okay, let's play the game again. And his friend kind of, is a little suspicious of why he wants to play the game again. Or I should say his friend's a little suspicious about why he's trying to investigate the mystery. But, the main character is kind of deflecting him and making it seem like he wants to figure out, what's going on about, why he felt sick, why he felt out of it. He's not making him, suspect that he knows about his irrational behavior. And they decide, okay, let's play the game again because we have absolutely no contact with the substitute teacher. We can't reach their website. There's nothing online about it. We can't go to adults because they act like we're crazy and we're going to look crazy. This is not a you got to believe me thing. We can't do that. So they're like, okay, let's go back and play the game. And the main character is like, but last time you got injured and we could be in danger. And his friend reassures him that, no, we're fighting together. You and I are some of the best VR players. We love doing it. If we're together, we can work as a team and be okay. And we can investigate some more stuff inside the actual game. And he's like, okay. So they hop back in the levels. They go through more action, more fighting with the demons. And he sees that the demons are avoiding his friend. The main character sees that the demons are actually more dogpiling on him and they're more intimidated and scared by his friend. And at one point, he swears that he sees his friend basically doing like gestures in a way towards him, being like, get him, go after him. And he freaks out and eventually he gets dogpiled by the demons. He ends up dying. His friend also gets taken out and he confronts his friend. He's like, you betrayed me. What are you doing? I saw you doing gestures towards the demons and they were scared of you. What's up with that? And his friend, starts gaslighting him and trying to act like, no, why are you accusing me? I'm your best friend. I never do that. I thought that you actually winked towards one of the demons and you were doing it. So it must be a simulation or program within the game. So a lot of S tier gaslighting and instigating. And eventually his friend, the main character, realizes that he can't rely on his friend for anything. So he starts doing his own research. And he goes into online and goes on YouTube. And eventually, while he's searching on YouTube and online, he finds this video, which only has 15 views. And it's of this girl who's a middle schooler who's in front of her camera with the lights off in her room. And it looks like found footage. It looks like some VHS type of stuff. And she's basically talking about how the same type of situation happened to her in school. A strange woman confronted her and offered her this game. She ended up taking it. And, after she started playing the game, the same thing happening to these characters. Because these characters are not able to delete the game. They keep trying to delete the game. They can't delete it. They put their phone on silent. The notifications still go on. Want to play a game. They turn their phone off. It still says, want to play a game. Even destroying or trying to stop it, it doesn't seem like it's going to work. So as she's in the video talking about it, she describes that since she saw it was a co-op game, she brought her brother to play with her. And when her and her brother played with each other in the game, her brother ended up getting attacked by a demon and his whole arm got shredded. His arm got torn up and he was bleeding. And when they both died in the level, they came back to real world and the brother was in shock. He started acting irrational. He started also acting more aggressive. He would put like reptiles and snakes in her bed. He would burn her clothes. He would start crashing out and doing all these random things. And eventually he got so sick that he went into a coma. And as she's saying this video on YouTube, as she's in front of the camera in this all black room, just with the light of the monitor on her, you keep hearing these bangs on the walls behind her. And eventually, as she suspects that there might be something that followed her brother outside of the game and messed with him and infected him, she then realizes that the banging noise is because she's home alone. Might be her brother coming back, and she ominously says like, my brother's back. And then she ends up closing the video just as it sounds like her door is about to bust open. So extremely creepy, really well done. And that's when the friend realizes that there might be something really bad in a cult going on, and he has to go to new mediums. And now it's up to him to essentially, with her help and some guidance, figure out how he's going to solve the situation, how can he save his friend, and it may or may not involve having to go back into the game, as well as some additional stuff that I'm not going to spoil because it's all towards the climax and ending. So that is essentially Want to Play a Game. And now that I've gone with the plot and I basically talked about some of the good things in it while I was explaining, let me just go into a quick overview of all the positives, the things I liked about it, and without a doubt, you should definitely check it out. So as I said, the main positive about this book is the fact that it is so absolutely action-packed. There is a ton of fighting and action and hair-raising scenes inside of the actual game in the beginning, in the middle section, in the climax, and other stuff as well outside of the game. Very action-packed, very high and intense. Really a lot of obstacles and troubles that the main character has to deal with. And the main character is so badass inside of the game. He feels like Sung Jin-woo from Solo Leveling. He's just aura farming and he's doing such a great job. And then when he gets into the real world, that's more of the mystery aspect. He's like problem solving and trying to use his brains and use his wits. Strategizing inside the actual games where his life is on the line, and on the outside where his danger is still lurking. Very cool main character in that regard. He is easily one of the greatest kids horror protagonists just off of how much problem solving he does and the fact that he faces such a highly intense threat and still manages to compete against it neck for neck, And that gets to the villain. The villain is flat out a demon, as I've hinted and said. It is flat out an ancient demon. It is very powerful. There is some amazing interaction scenes where, there's some confrontation between the characters and the villain says, it's up to you. You can decide whether or not you want to take up off my offer, but I suggest that you say goodbye to your friend Jax first, because the next time you see him, if you decline my challenge, he's no longer going to be breathing. And as soon as the friend goes like, that's not fair, the demon goes, well, that's the beauty of being a demon. nothing has to be fair on my end. And I was like, yo, this man is aura farming. He's out here, bro. He's on demon timing, no pun intended, bro. He's literally saying, like, I gave you my offer. It's up to you to take it or not. If you don't, I suggest you say farewell to your friend right now, because the next time you see him, if you decline my offer, he ain't going to be breathing no more. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, bro, this man's just being evil to be evil, because that's his nature. Obviously, he's a demon. He's on demon timing all the time. And he makes a challenge that if you don't take up on my offer of how you're able to basically save your friend, I'm going to claim both of your souls, which is crazy. So this is a very dark, very intense book. And funny enough, the climax scene actually has 3 standout action sequences. One involving the game, one involving something outside the game in some other fashion, and then the very ending, which is sort of like the resolution. And there's actually a twist ending in the book, and it makes sense. It actually makes sense. And it's a dark twist ending, so I liked it for that. That's all I'm going to say about the book. I don't want to spoil what happens in the climax, what happens in the ending, how the story resolves itself. But this book gets a 9.2 out of 10. It is a great book. Somewhere between a 9.2 to 9.4 out of 10. It is great. It is so much fun. It has dark and disturbing moments. It has creepy moments, as I highlighted. It has effective body horror and gross out. It has a ton of action and fighting in it. And it has a lot of problem solving and intensity back and forth between the villain, who is aura farming like shit, and the main character, who's also aura farming in his own way like shit. And of course, the way that it resolves, and a little bit of that Weapons 2025 aspect. So yeah, definitely go check it out. You can go pick up this book on Kindle for like $4, which is what I did. Go give it a read. Go check it out. I highly recommend it. And this is a very positive start to the Shivers series from Weird House Press. The promotion of these books was that, you know, kids can enjoy it and adults can enjoy it. And I understand that completely, because this book really pushed the envelope, pushed the boundaries, and I'm so proud that I got to read it. So yeah, that's all I got for today. If you like this review, if you like me putting you on, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below, and stay tuned for more content to come. Probably in later October, I'll read these 2 books and I'll make reviews, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm definitely on the lookout for that. Shout out to Weird House Press for making these great books, especially this one. I love what you guys are doing. Looking forward to the other 2. Looking forward to the Ice Cream Man book by Tim Wagner that's going to be coming out, honoring my wish of adult horror authors going into kids horror. And thank you for supporting Tim Curran, my favorite author. I love the fact that you guys mascot that dude, because it means a lot to me. And I'll be on the lookout for Alien Horrors 2 when it drops. That's all I got for today. Have a blessed day, and make sure you avoid ancient demons in VR games. Things go bad. Deuces.